Welcome to Break Free to Brilliance podcast, empowering women in business through thought-provoking interviews and insights. Embrace your authentic power, explore the impact of your story, and discover how writing your best-selling book can amplify your message, authority, and the 3 I's: impact, influence, and income. Let each episode guide you towards brilliance in minutes. This is your host, Seema Giri. Welcome back to another amazing episode of Break Free to Brilliance podcast. This is your friend and host, Seema. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. If you are new here, thank you so much for joining us. I know you are going to love this episode. If you have been listening to us for a while and have joined us back, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us. And you know that this isn't about adding another thing to your plate. It's about growing. I'm so happy you're here again. And this is my favorite time. So let's get started. Today, I have a very special treat for you. I have a very special guest. Her name is Stacey Heisey Terrell. Welcome, Stacey.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So today we are going to dive into talking about careers. And before we start the conversation, let me give you a formal introduction of Stacey. Stacey helps professionals create fulfilling career 2.0 journeys that align with their lives. Corporate life taught her that what doesn't work, the long hours, broken promises, and stalled growth. Now she helps people design careers that truly fit their goals, values, and lifestyles. Her belief is, let's make work for you. And I love that. Well, so Stacey, we were just talking a little bit earlier before we started the recording that first half of our lives, we had to have career fit into our lives. Everything was around the career. Yeah. I'm so glad that you are now helping others with their career 2.0 on fitting work around their life. How did you get started?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. We spend so much of our time molding ourselves to fit these careers, these jobs. And I certainly did that. I worked in human resources for, a couple decades before I started my own business here. And I did the travel, missed kids' events, gave long hours, went through a layoff myself, had lots of challenges, and came to a point in my career where I just wasn't sure. I'd hit the ceiling and a few walls and wasn't sure what to do next. Met a career ownership coach myself and really started exploring, are there ways that I can take control of my career, identify some of the goals that I had in my current life phase, which is very different than what my goals were in my early 20s or 30s, figure out what kind of career would fit my life, what met my income needs, would meet my lifestyle needs. Now that I've got teenagers, it's great to work from home and have a more flexible schedule. I have income needs because I have kids going to college and those sorts of things on the horizon. Also thinking about wealth and equity. What kind of impact do I want to make on the world, on my community? What kind of legacy am I leaving? And I really wanted to examine those things. I've really been coaching people, employees and leaders my whole career. And this seemed very natural to do it now from the outside rather than the inside. I've had a great journey learning about business ownership, learning about myself in the process, finding new challenges, but also now I get to talk with all kinds of really amazing people, terrific backgrounds, really diverse backgrounds, and see in this new phase of their life, how might they move to the driver's seat of their career rather than maybe they've been sitting in the passenger or even the back seat as somebody else has picked the direction and vision for their careers.
It's such a different way of thinking about it. I think a lot of young people today are considering it this way too. This is my life and I get to decide how I want to do it. And they're refusing to do a lot of things.
You didn't have a lot of choice about, right?
Exactly. I don't think you have a choice. This is how it worked, but it's not like
Right.
more. And they're rejecting that.
Yeah.
Many of us from our generation are calling that, oh, they think they're entitled. They think they're, so that's an interesting perspective. But, for the rest of us, including me, must be wondering, because you said career ownership coach. What is the difference between a career coach and a career ownership coach?
Well, the emphasis in my practice that I take with my clients is really thinking about what their goals are, where they see themselves down the road, how they define success, which may be radically different than societal success or what their families have wanted for them. Taking some of that freedom to think about, if they could redesign things, what would that look like? Taking away any shame or pressure that might be different than what other people do or find fulfilling. And then we start from there. Some of my clients have been through a layoff, or they may be in a not so great situation. It might be that they just need a change of environment. Keep doing what they're doing in a different, better environment. How do we articulate and find what that environment is? For some of my clients, they're ready. I've got my skills. We've talked about my skills. I know where I'm headed. How do I get there in a totally different vehicle? Is that a new job title, a different industry? Is it business ownership? How do we get creative about where I'm headed? And then how do I tell my story, be me, or maybe more authentically me in that process, to explain to people why I'm not a director or VP anymore, or I'm leaving my prestigious industry to do something else? How do we even talk about that or explain it? Sometimes, again, taking some ownership of your story and how you want to tell it and shape that.
This is a time really when you're talking about these changes in mid-career. This is when we really talk about the changes and wonder about career change. What are some of the fears or doubts that many experience during this time?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it comes, we have that like, well, I've been doing something for years and years and years, and I feel pretty confident in my skills, my ability. I know this environment, even though it might not be the best environment. How do I change? Change is scary and hard. A lot of my clients who are thinking about business ownership or exploring that seriously, that sounds risky and it's scary. And sometimes their families, are worried for them. They come across very negative because they don't want the person to get hurt or fail. Even I'm scared to tell my partner, my family, my friends will think I'm nuts, right? So falling back to why, what are the goals? What are you trying to achieve? And can we explain the change through that lens of what will the change actually do for you? And, and then I think sometimes people are really surprised how people come around or the reactions they get. I had one client and she was so nervous to talk to her husband. She'd been in job search for a while. Nothing was really panning out. She's like, I think I want to own my own business, but I don't know. We were exploring it. I'm like, you got to talk to your husband, right? So she talks to him and she thought he would, like, no, you got to get a job. We got to have this. And he surprised her and he was like, thank God you finally came to this conclusion. I knew you should have owned your own business 10 years ago, but I've been watching you, right? Like struggle and fight it, right? He had been saying something. She could not hear it. She had to come to that place on her own, but she's like, oh my gosh, he was naming off ways I'd be good at this and ways that he would help. It really took their relationship to a different level. I think sometimes being really honest with ourselves about what we want and how we want to get, that can be kind of electric people want to be part of that once they hear some of that passion and freedom that comes with
Yeah.
recognizing like, oh, yeah.
That exploration is quite interesting and scary too, because you're so used to a certain level of security all of these years. Even if some family members are not on board or saying, what are you crazy? It's because of that
Right.
security level that you've had. It's a consistency you can rely on for so many things. And just even having a consistent way of just doing things, right? When you get into business ownership or when you're changing your careers, there's so many unknown and so much uncertainty that you don't know. You have to have a certain personality to handle that and leave your comfort zone. But that's where the greatest growth comes. It usually starts with that nudge in your heart, that thing or something different. I always encourage my clients to explore that because that's your intuition, your inner guidance telling you what your next step is. Stacey, what are some common signs that it's time to start exploring new career options?
Sometimes it's hard to tell when you're just in a tough season or things are just a little bumpy, and when is it a sign, right? And I think a lot of times talking to somebody, maybe even someone who doesn't know you at all. I get this quite a bit with clients, like, oh, I'm a complete stranger. I don't know how they're going to answer questions. I'll ask questions that maybe someone who knows them wouldn't think to ask because they assume an answer. So I think sometimes talking to somebody helps draw out like, oh, we've been through rough patches before and then it goes kind of back to normal. So maybe it's just a trying time. And sometimes we get at like, yeah, you know what? I just haven't felt like I've felt like a round peg in a square hole for the last, 7 years. And now is really the time to do something about that. So again, listening to your intuition, I think that takes some quiet, some self-reflection, some discipline to think really critically about where you're headed, if your career is fitting with your goals. Sometimes that can be more enjoyable with a bud asking you questions and supporting you too, as you have some of those deeper, like, oh, wow, the light bulb has come on. I probably need to make a change.
And especially when it's not enjoyable anymore, right? Yeah. But sometimes they come in, what I've noticed with intuition, it comes in gently where you can barely hear it. Things start to happen and if it gets louder every time, it kind of almost slaps you on the face. Do this now. It gets bigger and bigger. So I always say to people, start, listen, every day or once a week, get quiet and start listening. Get it early. It's
Easier. I talk to people who have been through a layoff and it is amazing to me. They almost all say that, oh, you know what? I knew I needed to leave, but it was comfortable here or I felt secure, even if it wasn't secure. And thank goodness, this is kind of the kick that I needed, right? A little boot out of the nest. I find that fascinating that I hear that from so many people. And I'm like, well, when did you start thinking of this, right? And it's those little voices we're ignoring. And then the universe is like, okay, you gotta go. Like, you gotta find something else. And comes in a big sign. Sometimes people are relieved when that happens. It's disruptive, but sometimes it can. And then I think that also gives you that indication that, oh, yeah, there's a better fit waiting for you here.
I think layoffs sometimes for some people is that push they needed. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done it themselves. So, what are some tools that people can use to do the self-reflection?
Well, I think a lot of times we use that energy, the strategizing energy that we have on our teams, our departments, our kids, our families, and we don't get to use that. It feels selfish to use that on ourselves. So I think finding some quiet time, talking with somebody sometimes helps to talk to a coach. I'm certainly love to explore with people. I use a few different assessment tools to highlight what are your unique skills and abilities, things maybe you took for granted about yourself? Or
Mm.
often I hear people go, "Oh, I don't know if that's special. Can everybody do that?" And I'm like, "No, no." And so again, I think taking some time to re-examine, what is it that you bring to the table? Are you not doing enough of one thing or another? Are you missing or longing for something in your career? And I think a lot of that comes with, some structured exercises, talking, self-reflection. Those can be really good tools to start that journey. What exactly do I feel is wrong? What do I want instead? We spend lots of time talking about those things.
Journaling would be a good way
Oh,
also.
for sure.
There's something about when you write with pen and paper, if you can do that, it
Hmm.
activates something in your brain and you have that connection and heart connection to writing that can
Hmm.
really help you go deeper and dig into the few things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always say look at what brings you joy and what you enjoy the most out of all the work you've done. We always have things we don't enjoy, but what really excites
Yeah.
you and you can do for a long term, that's always good. So we've talked about
Yeah.
going from corporate to maybe business ownership or changing careers. What about the other way around? What about some people who've explored
Hmm.
entrepreneurship or business ownership, consulting, and now they're like, you know what? Maybe I want to go back to corporate. How
Yeah.
have you dealt with that too?
Yes. And I think it's the same process. A lot of times we've got fear about, would anybody else find my skills valuable, or could I fit in this environment? And we just come back to those goals. What are the skills that you bring to the table? How do you tell your career story and highlight your strengths? What makes you different from other applicants? We spend a lot of time on those elements. And then does your job collaterals, your resume, your LinkedIn page, the things that you bring that other people see, does that reflect your story? So sometimes I think we have these wonderful personalities, these wonderful life stories, things, the amazing things we've done in our career. And then on a page, we look pretty cold and sterile. We try to match those up. How do we warm things up? How do you insert some of your personality that comes out in your LinkedIn so people who are looking know immediately how they can start picking things up on your character and what you're bringing with you.
Okay, good. Stacey, let's talk about the elephant in the room. I right? There's so much in the news. AI is going to replace you. We've seen corporations laying off, and some are saying it's because of AI. Amazon, Salesforce have been the latest that have laid off a lot of people. Do you think AI is going to replace, and how are people currently navigating the job market with getting opportunities because of that?
Well, as you were listing those fears, I have another one to add to the list. I talk to a lot of people who are in the job market who complain about AI being too good of a gatekeeper, keeping them out of jobs, or even keeping recruiters from getting good applicants. It's a hindrance, not a help in
Mm.
some aspects that people are frustrated or they're attributing to AI is a good boogeyman, I think. So, yeah, what I do with my clients is depending on our industries, there are all kinds of things that could come and make us not relevant. And AI is scary. So are some acquisitions, companies relocating or calling people back into the office. Those are common fears I hear from people. I see this coming. How do I stay in front of it and
Yeah.
not get smashed by it? I want to ride the wave, not be under the wave. For a lot of my clients, assessing what do you bring to the table? What makes you unique? How what are you using your career for? What are those goals that you're aimed towards? And can you focus on those? How can we be smart about diversifying or giving ourselves additional options so we may not feel so hemmed in by our job title or specific job duties. So, for example, I have clients who are very interested in, could I start a side business that would give me income? So if something happens with my main job, I know I can rely on certain income. Or could I start a business, grow it, and hop over to it if I needed to? As we're talking, sometimes we identify like we've got some holes in your skills and abilities. How might we get some more experience, some different experience? How could you find out about a type of job if you wanted to switch industries? How can we be creative about using our network and finding that information? Lots of things to do. And I think as well, some of that applies for job seekers who are frustrated or feel like they're not getting through that heavy gated AI door. How can you leverage your communities, your network? I had a client a few months ago and he'd been out of work for a year and really felt like he was in a very niche position. The computers were kind of taken over, the robots were taken over, and people didn't want to spend money paying for his expertise. He was frustrated with job search and felt like he needed to take things into his own hands. So he started a business. He's like, if they're not going to let me in, I'm going to make my own way. Some people are like, I'm not playing this game anymore. So we try to identify those goals. How do we get creative about edging in from a different angle or finding some stability or security outside the normal, that a job at a big corporation is stable? It's not always. You have government workers who are my clients now, thought they had a really highly stable job. Now that's not stable either. So how do you always have to be looking and watchful. How can you give yourself some additional options? Usually they are there. We're just not looking for them or aware of them or really leveraging them.
Probably aware and that you can leverage because we only know what we
Yeah.
know, right? We don't know what we
Yep.
don't
Yep.
know. And then when you're so focused on one area, you just don't even see those other
You're
opportunities.
missing.
Yeah. It's your blind
Absolutely.
spot, right? It's your blind spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how can coaching help them navigate through this transition?
I think coaching, a lot of people, it can sound a little scary or therapy, but I think coaching really helps bring those blinders down and kind of pull the curtain back a little bit. I know for my clients, I've got resources I can connect them to, people to talk to, new stories to hear. When we're in a corporate track, often we don't get to talk with business owners about how did you decide on this and what does your day to day look like. Sometimes those conversations or getting more of what else is there on on the horizon can give you ideas. So I've had people talking to business owners who go, "Oh my gosh, I have this great idea for my job search," and vice versa, right? I think a coach can help open up, help connect to resources, and then also help identify what are some of those themes that while you're in it, you're not able to see as well. Can I help keep you accountable to your goals? All that is helpful. I've even had people say, I just want you to get on my calendar so I know I have some accountability to think about myself for an hour this week. So I think even that, sometimes is really, really helpful. And then to bring along a friend, a support, and a cheerleader that can remind you that you're unique and special and meant for something more.
Yeah, and being able to identify your blind spots because you can't see that it's your blind spot. And then being able to share on how to share your story can make such a huge difference. How you share it, what experiences do you bring in, what you want to focus on. Sometimes we
Hmm.
don't know our strengths. We're so busy doing what we're doing. It's our strengths, but we don't know
Yeah.
public speaking is actually my strength, or, organization is
Right.
actually my strength, and I enjoy it
Right.
most over there. So having someone else pull that out, because when you're talking about
Mhm.
something, you can't really see the expression on your face, right? But the other,
Right.
you
Right.
can, right? You can see
Goes,
where
oh, you just lit up when you talked about that.
I think that alone is so huge. This
Mhm.
is the time I've been getting a lot of clients when they're transitioning. They have so much wisdom and they want to share that. So when they want to start their own business, or they're consulting,
Yeah.
or even professionals who want to,
Yeah.
still remain working wherever they are, but have the opportunity
Yeah.
to speak at conferences and do trainings. I get a lot of people coming to me saying, okay, I want to write a book, because it's a great way to capture your wisdom for other people
Yeah.
to see. It's like, oh, this is what,
Yes.
and then it helps you get even those consulting assignments or
Mhm.
clients, because when you have a book, you have a system. And
Right.
many
Right.
times you have an idea. When I walk them through and help them, we actually build their system within the book, and they can use
Hmm.
that. Or sometimes people want a flavor, like, okay, let's see what you're all about. So a book is a great showcase that flavor and say, okay,
Yeah.
this is what I want to do. So that's been a really great launching pad to show to the world, this is
Mhm.
my wisdom, this is my system, this is what I've done. It helps them engage that. Have you found that?
Yes, I love that. Well, and I think, again, for a lot of us, like we're thinking about our impact and our legacy. We might want to do something, but feel like, how do I even get started? Who would I even talk to? It's a little embarrassing to tell people I want to write a book, or I want to mentor more people, or make,
Yeah.
XYZ impact, or leave something for my children. Sometimes it's hard to express and to know even where to start. I fully agree. A lot of times coaches can name that feeling, help you
Yeah.
name that feeling. And then, okay, how do we make that happen? How do we be constructive about that?
Well, this has been really amazing conversation, and I hope the audience has really picked up some of the nuggets. Do you think this is the best time to do transition?
I think there's never a bad time,
Yeah.
actually. People talk about the economy, the environment this time of year, every single economy, every time of year, there's an excuse,
Yeah.
right? So I think some of that going ahead, getting started, and then when you're able to pull some data, you're in discovery, thinking about things, then make some of those decisions. Would it be better to wait? Or what do I need to do? I have some people who are like, oh, I know I want to do that as my long-term plan, but my short term, I still need to do XYZ. Okay, now we've identified that and we've got both a short and long term. People who often say, "Oh, it's not the right time. I can't. It's the holidays. I can't make a change. Like I got to wait till the new year. I got to wait till there's a new political environment, whatever it is." Like that's just an excuse, right? It'll never feel right. You got to start somewhere and then pull the data to support
Yeah.
it.
I really want our listeners to pick up on this, and what you said was very important. There's excuses no matter what time of the year it is. We can
Hmm.
come up with those excuses. But
Yeah.
we've talked about tapping into your intuition. If you're getting that nudge now, right, that means this is the time. And remember, it's not like you get the nudge and tomorrow you're going to quit your job. There is a planning
Yeah.
component to this, right? There is
For
an
sure.
exploring component, which is going to take you a month or two, or maybe 90 days for that. Then there's a planning component. Then there's a designing component of this, right? Like you said, Stacey, that what is it that you want to do? Because you're taking ownership of your career, and you want your career to be around your life. This is your life, and now you want your career, not the career and not your life, right? You're able to make that change. You get to decide what is priority. All of this is going to take time. If you don't start now, if you're getting that nudge, when is it? This is the time that you start thinking about it. How long does it
Mhm.
typically take, Stacey, from someone to make that decision and then they start the planning to actually making the change?
Yeah, Exactly what you said. That could be as quick as 3 or 4 months or much longer. And so I find with my clients, sometimes even the exploration, knowing what the plan is or knowing there are additional options makes you feel better in your current situation. So
Yeah.
even if that option that you're going to exercise or that long-term plan is years down the road, you have a different confidence, a different freedom about you than if you would have never made that plan.
Yeah.
And for a lot of folks, it's scary to think, what if I did this? But I would encourage people to think about, well, what if you didn't do it? How would you feel? You know, like, well, how, like, maybe that's okay, but maybe that might raise some big issues. Like, if I wait longer, what would happen? Are
Yeah.
you okay with that? And really exploring those nudges, those feelings, the heart murmurings, right? Of time to do some self-examination and planning.
I have found that when you don't do that, the heaviness gets so much more that it can actually impact your health. And that's what had happened with me. I had become bedridden because I ignored all of the signs. I didn't know they were signs. I was 20s,
Yeah.
I didn't know, but it weighs on you physically and mentally, robbing you of all the joys that you could be having.
Yeah.
Exploring is the best thing. And I think the holidays, this is the time that people actually start thinking, what do I want to do with my life? And,
Yeah. Yeah.
what is this? Am I meant for more? Am I meant for something different? Do you find that too, Stacey?
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes when people have time off and then have those like, ugh, I don't want to go back to work. Or I was supposed to be off. We had family events planned, but I had to bring my laptop with me, or they were calling me from the office 24/7,
Right.
or where I don't get to take off and I'm missing a family thing. People are thinking, is this it? Like
Yeah.
like it, I'm feeling the rub, but there is something a little magical about a season change where the trees are changing. It's nice to embrace that in ourselves too. Think about a new year, think about a new season. Do I need to shed some of my leaves and try
Exactly.
something new, right?
Yeah, definitely. This is the time, it's an emotional time, it's
Mhm.
heart-centered, and people started thinking. So this is a great time to start thinking and planning because you deserve more, you deserve better if you're not happy where you are. Or sometimes it's just a season to change. I have known a lot of people who are doing really well and they were happy doing that. But there was a season for change. So things will start happening in your life that will lead to that, which is a good thing. I think whatever we're meant to do somehow finds you during your lifetime.
Yeah. You can't avoid it, right? Like it will find you. Yeah. Some of those stories are a little more dramatic than others, but
The universe has a way of doing that. And then it's scary to step in. I was working in corporate before, and then my husband wanted to start our own business, a project management consulting business. That was scary, but it was like he was in the front. So I was like, okay, I'm behind to support him.
right.
And then when it came time for me, I never thought I would launch my own business, right? So Uplift Media is my own business that I'm doing. I never thought I would do that because I was always behind the scenes kind of person, the supporter, not the lead,
Yeah.
public speaking and doing podcasts. But the whole scenario happened in such a way that I stepped into that. I was scared, but I stepped into it. I'm so happy now. This is what I was meant to do: communication, leading, helping people become visible, helping people showcase who they are so they can have a bigger impact is what I was meant to do. When I looked at my whole career, I was kind of doing that, but then this was what
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be doing in this season. Sometimes you get those nudges, and I got a whack in the head. Listen to those softer nudges before. But it's scary. If not now, when? If you
Mhm.
step into it and you find you don't like it, you can always go back and do
Yeah.
something.
Once your eyes are open to that, the freedom that comes with like Okay, there is not only one, there isn't just one way to play
Yeah,
this game. You know something now that maybe some of your coworkers don't or haven't realized
exactly.
yet. And that comes with a special feeling of freedom of, I can do this. I can take control and find creative and sometimes really surprising paths. Like I love your story about, I was a behind the scenes person and now you're the face of your media company. I think sometimes we're surprised by that. But then when you think about like, would you ever go back to corporate? Would you ever rewind? Could you ever see yourself doing something that wasn't this? Yeah.
Well, actually, that's the other thing I want to add. I'm glad you brought this up. It's not a or thing. It's an and thing. I'm still
Hmm.
involved in corporate. I'm still doing my project
Hmm.
management
Hmm.
corporate trainings. I travel
Yeah.
around the world doing that. I'm consulting for companies and I get to do this.
Right.
It's not a or
Yeah.
thing. Society had placed that on us.
It
And
had told us that there's only one way.
so you get to do that. Stacey, it was so wonderful having this conversation
Oh,
with
thank
you.
you so much.
You brought so many new perspectives to our listeners who are in this transition place and who might be wondering, is this the right time? Should I or should I not? How can they get in touch with you to help them answer that question?
Yeah, I'd love to talk to people. People can reach me probably the easiest way through my website, which is my life, my biz, B-I-Z. And so mylifemybiz.com. And that takes you right into my calendar contact card that I can reach out to you after you fill out. We can have a short chat and see if my services align with what your needs are, what your goal is during this season.
Wonderful. And all of that information is going to be in our show notes, so you can get Stacey's information there. Any parting words, Stacey?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Yeah, I think it's great to meet fellow travelers, right? With the mission, life is short and we need to be making the most of it for ourselves, but for also for the people around us and that we're responsible for. And your career is a big piece of that. We might as well find some alignment. Thank you so much for your time, Seema.
Oh, my pleasure. I love having guests like you who are really doing what they can, your talent, and helping make an impact in people's lives. And to our listeners, if you're in a season of change and transition, as scary as it is, I invite you to explore that. Exploration doesn't mean you're going to make any change, but look into why are you feeling that right now? What is coming up? What is it that you really want to do that you're not able to do it now? You can probably add on those things. You may not have to change your career, you may not have to change your job, but maybe you do. So I invite you to explore all of that because, like I said, even if you're going to step into that, it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. But if you don't explore and answer this question, most likely you're not going to be that happy. If we're talking about transition, if we're talking about mid career, we're in a season where you really get to and deserve to create the life that you always wanted, live the life that you want if you're not already, because it impacts you, but it also impacts everyone around you. And you, in your world, in your community, are the ones who are showing what is possible. So I invite you to step into that because if all of us do what makes us happy, the world is going to be a better place. I hope Stacey and I have given you some gold nuggets to think about. Until next time, this is Seema. Be bold, be seen, be real, and be brilliant. And I want to take a moment to mention that the content shared in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. My guests and I share personal experiences and real life examples that have helped us live our best lives, much like friends sharing stories. While we strive to provide valuable information, it's important to consult with professionals for advice tailored to your individual circumstances. Thank you for being part of our community and thank you for spending this time with me. Remember, your story is your strength. Until next time, stay inspired and keep making a difference. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Break Free to Brilliance podcast, and I hope you had some key takeaways that you can implement right away. Be sure to subscribe to Break Free to Brilliance wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow along with us on social media using the links in the show notes below. We'll see you again for the next episode.